Hey, I'm going to talk about all the manga I have, my memories of reading them and finding them, and all that good stuff. So, first up, I'm going to talk about Dragon Ball. So, Dragon Ball Z, I got the box set for, so I have all these singles of it. But the original Dragon Ball here, I had to make do with these crusty looking 3-in-1s. They don't look that bad from the spine. The spine looks pretty good on these. But if you look at it from the top, the pages look so nasty. They come pre-yellowed. Normally it takes a while for books pages to get yellow. These are yellow right out the gate. And then, man, the quality of these books, they feel like they're printed on bread clips and used Kleenex. And with these 3-in-1s, this is the edition of Dragon Ball that publishes both the original and Z in the same series like it originally was in Japan. And so because of that, this last volume also has the first two volumes of Z in it, which is redundant for me and is kind of, it bugs me a little bit, but there are worse problems in the world than having redundant Dragon Ball volumes and Dragon Ball volumes that have yellow pages that are very thin. I will survive. I will live to see another day. And but I should still, it would be nice to upgrade to that box set of the original Dragon Ball at some point. Alright, so Dragon Ball Z was actually the first manga I ever read. I read Z before the original because they didn't have the original at my local library, but they had Z there. But even with no context whatsoever, having never read a manga before, I still had a great time with Dragon Ball Z. I mean, it's shirtless dudes punching each other and yelling and stuff, so how can you not have a great time with that? And I had such a good time that after reading this, I wanted to check out other manga, and that's how I ended up with all of this stuff over here. So, shout out to Dragon Ball Z for getting me into manga, but still, ooh, even though I had a good time starting with this, I wish I'd started with this because, the original Dragon Ball, it comes first, and reading things in order is normally a good idea. And the original Dragon Ball is just so good. I think I like it more than Z, but both of these are great. And yeah, the original Dragon Ball, it's just so fun. It's full of heart. It's full of whimsy. This series got me using words like whimsy to describe it because it's just... It evokes those feelings, man. It's just so funny too. Like I was reading this and I was laughing, and well, no, I don't actually like laugh when I read things, but I was reading this and I would look at the page and think to myself, wow, that is really funny. And I would do that multiple times while reading this. So that's the mark of a good series right there. What am I doing? Why am I bothering to hype up a Dragon Ball when this is like the most popular manga of all time? You know what this is. Okay, I should just move on. Dragon Ball, you've read this already. I don't need to talk about that anymore. But next up, Tropic of the Sea. Tropic of the Sea. Oh, okay, so I have my manga organized by size first, but aside from that, they're in chronological order of when they came out. So we start out with the older stuff here. And then it gets newer as it goes on. You get what I'm saying? So if you're wondering what Tropic of the Sea is doing right next to Dragon Ball Z, that's why it's here. This book is by Satoshi Kon, who did a bunch of really good movies: Perfect Blue, Millennium Actress, several others. I've seen all his movies. I've liked all his movies. So I was like, you know what? I'll buy all his manga that he's put out too. And so I think I have them all. I think I have all of his manga that have been released in English. And the deal with that is that all of his movies are pretty well received. Everyone loves his movies. His manga, not so much. And Tropic of the Sea here is one of those that I'd heard nothing good about whatsoever. Yeah, all I'd heard about this was hate and that this was the worst thing Satoshi Kon ever did. But I was still like, you know what? It's my guy, Satoshi. I gotta buy all the stuff he ever did. And so I bought it anyway, even though I'd heard nothing good about it. And, oh, okay. I made one of these manga collection videos, the thing you're watching right now. I made one of these last year. And in that, I said the same thing I'm telling you, that I heard nothing good about this. And I actually, I got some people defending this manga in the comments. I got like at least 3 people saying that Tropic of the Sea is actually really good. So now I'm curious, because I'm like, oh, like a lot of people say it's bad. Now people are saying it's good. I don't know. What is it? What is it good? Is it bad? So yeah, I still haven't read it yet. I haven't said that yet. I haven't read this, but I'm curious, and someday I'll read it and figure out whether I think it's good or bad or not. And then, well, you know what? This thing's one volume. I could read this real quick. I'll just pause recording the video here, read it real fast, and then I'll get back to you and tell you whether I like it or not. So here we go. I'll just do that. All right, I'm back. I finished reading Tropic of the Sea, and it was pretty good. I'm on the side of the people who think that this is a good manga, and yeah, for a one-volume manga, this was great. I was a lot more invested in these characters than I normally am for one-volume series. And yeah, it's not as good as any of Satoshi Kon's movies, but I mean, that's a high bar, you know? That man put out only masterpieces pretty much. But I think this is definitely worth a read. And now I'm going to be one of those guys defending it in YouTube comment sections. So I'm glad I read it. Tropic of the Sea, it's good. Go check it out. All right, Slam Dunk. This is without a doubt one of the best manga I've ever read in my life. I read this whole thing last year in about 5 days or so. Like all 31 volumes of this in 5 days. And I'm kind of a slow reader, so I don't usually do stuff like that. But this manga got me hooked. I was so invested. I remember reading this last volume here and just being glued to the page, just flipping pages and like locking out the outside world, completely just zoning in, because I was like more on the edge of my seat than just about any other thing I'd ever read ever. Whew, I gotta hold myself back, or else I'm just gonna gush about Slam Dunk for 45 minutes and no one wants to hear that. But yeah, Slam Dunk, I made a video last year about the best manga that I read in 2023, and this was number one, of course, because what could beat Slam Dunk? And so if you want to hear me gush to an embarrassing extent about how much I liked Slam Dunk, go check out that video. But anyway, yeah, I gotta shorten what I say about these series, or else this video is gonna be 4 hours long. So, alright, I'm painfully moving on from Slam Dunk and onto GTO the early years over here. This manga is painfully out of print. This is, I just get filled with bad feelings thinking about how out of print this manga is. And so some of these middle volumes here, these guys, they do not go for good prices. You don't want to know the things I did to get some of these. You don't want to, I'm not going to tell you. It was bad. And I mean, look at this. This volume 10 here, it's like beaten up. It's being held together by tape, and there's this big old rip. Yeah. Do you want to know how much I paid for this falling apart, disgusting looking volume? You don't want to know. It would bring tears to your eyes if you knew how much I paid for this beaten up looking thing over here. So yeah. And the sad part is I'm missing one volume. I'm missing volume 15, the last volume here. And when I first was interested in this series, this volume 15 was in print. It was going for like $10, and I didn't buy it because I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to piece together the rest of the series, so I might as well not own any of it. And look, the joke's on me. Look at this. I have everything else now, but volume 15 I can't find anywhere. So, yep, that's how it goes. But yeah, I read the beginning of this series a while ago because these first couple volumes are reasonably priced still, and I enjoyed it. And now it was pretty recently that I procured these expensive middle volumes, these volumes that I did heinous, disgusting things to get. So now that I have most of it, I'm reading parts that I've never read, and it's been good. So yeah, GTO the early years, I would recommend it, but it's definitely not for the prices it goes for. Would not pay any of those prices whatsoever. But it is a good series, sort of. There's some stuff that it's not for everybody. Let me say that. Look into it before you drop billions of dollars on this series, because it's definitely not for everybody. But I like it. It's pretty neat. And then GTO, the main GTO series is also disgustingly out of print, but slightly less so than the early years. But once again with this, I'm missing one single volume. I'm missing volume 23, which goes for a whole lot of money. But I will say that this is at least possible to find. GTO the early years 15, this only exists in like ancient lore. Like you gotta go to the temple from Indiana Jones and bypass the booby traps and run from the boulder in order to get this mythical volume. While 23, you just gotta go on eBay and pay a lot of money. So it's possible to find it at least. Yu Yu Hakusho was also super out of stock for a really long time. There was years where you could not find certain volumes of this series anywhere, but thankfully it all came back and I got it for a really good price. And yeah, hopefully it's still back. I don't know, maybe this is out of stock again, but hopefully it's back forever. Sorry, I feel like the past 3 minutes has just been me complaining about manga being out of print and out of stock and stuff. We'll move on from that in a second. This is all old manga, so once we get to the newer stuff, there will be less complaining about stock issues. So, okay, next up, Rurouni Kenshin. I found this whole series used for $3 a volume at a used bookstore near me, so I picked it up. I'd only read like the first 2 volumes, I think, but those 2 volumes were good enough that I took a chance on the rest of it. I mean, for $3 a volume, that's pretty good. But these are some of the most used looking volumes I've ever seen. Like, these are ones where you touch them and they make like crinkly noises. Like they just don't feel right, you know? But this is a good series to be buying used because the manga author did some really bad stuff. And I don't know if they even make new copies of this series anymore, so used is the way to go for this one. I still gotta read it and see how I feel about it. But I do hear it's a classic. It's supposed to be pretty good. Next up, Angelic Layer. Angelic Layer, this is Clamp, one of Clamp's many series, and I think this one's out of print too. This is looking pretty out of print to me, but there's been a lot of Clamp stuff coming back recently, so I wouldn't be surprised if this gets reprinted in some really cool looking edition soon. And then, oh, Hunter x Hunter's next. This is the second battle shonen I ever read, and I had a great time with it. If you've read Hunter x Hunter, you probably had a great time with it too, because every arc in here is completely different. There's a bunch of crazy stuff that happens, and it's just a really well-written series, and I'm a big fan. I'm missing the newest volume. That's surreal to say that there's a newest volume, because when I caught up with this, it was on hiatus for an eternity. I kind of thought it was never going to come back, but it's back. It's still going. It just came out with a new chapter a couple days ago, so that's cool. But I will say, I think I'm going to wait until the current arc ends before I read any more of this, because this current arc is impossible to follow when you deal with these hiatuses, because I tried getting back into it and I was like, oh my goodness, I need to get a PhD in Hunter x Hunter in order to follow what's happening here, because there's just so much going on. So yeah, whenever the current arc ends, I'll dive back in. But for now, yeah, I might reread this again sometime though, because it's been a bit since I've read it, and it's really good, and that would be fun to read the whole thing again. Zombie Powder. This is by the guy who wrote Bleach, and I love Bleach, so I picked this up. You'll hear all about my love of Bleach later on. Yeah, I saw this at a used bookstore, and I was like, oh, it's by Bleach guy, I would like that, so I got it. Oh, and before I forget, I'll tell you some quick stats about the manga I own and answer some frequently asked questions that I get in the comments of these videos and stuff. So here we go, I'll do that real quick. So I believe I own about 1,000 some volumes of manga. I don't know the specific amount, but I've been reading and buying manga for about 7 years. It's coming up on 7 years soon. And like I said earlier, the first manga I read was Dragon Ball Z, and the first manga volume I bought was Neon Genesis Evangelion over here, which was a couple months after I read Dragon Ball Z for the first time. I'd say at this point I've probably read about 70% of the manga I own. That is not an exact number, that's just kind of a guess, but it feels right to me. I've slowed way down on buying manga because at this point I own most of the series I want, like except for some super out of print stuff that I'll probably never get, and new series that are coming out, like Ashita no Joe's coming out later this year. I'm definitely going to pick that up, but aside from that, I mean, I have pretty much everything I want, so I don't imagine I'm gonna get too much more manga than this. And also those series that I have, that I read, that I thought were just kind of okay, and I'm probably gonna get rid of, so I think this might be the biggest that my manga collection is ever going to be, and it's just going to get smaller from now on. The plan is to read everything I have, though. I'm a big fan of reading stuff physically, so that's why I have all this stuff instead of just reading everything online. And I make it a point to read something every day, whether it's manga or comics or books, you know, so yeah, reading's good. I recommend reading. Oh, and another question I get is, where do I buy all this from? So some good manga buying advice is never pay full price for anything ever. Out of everything I own, there's maybe like 5 books that I paid full price for, because you can find them for not full price if you look. And specifically, I had a used bookstore near me for a long time that would sell manga for $3 a volume. So that's where I got all these volumes of Reborn and Rurouni Kenshin I brought up earlier, Jujutsu Kaisen, I got that from there. A lot of these One Punch Mans, all kinds of stuff. What else? I don't know off the top. Oh, these Evangelion Angelic Days, all kinds of stuff I got from there for $3 a volume. And unfortunately, they've jacked up their prices recently. It's like $5 or $6 a volume now, so I don't really go there anymore. So as a rule of thumb, I'd try to find everything used first. And that's why I only own 3 volumes of Vagabond, when it's one of my favorite series, because I someday I feel like I'm gonna find it used, and when I do, I'll buy it then. But I haven't found it yet. But there's other stuff that I've resigned myself to being like, oh, I'll probably never find that used out in the wild. So like Gintama, Slam Dunk, I got those from Right Stuff Anime, which doesn't exist anymore. But they had really good sales and prices, so I got these for really cheap. Yeah, I don't even know where you'd buy manga anymore, to be honest, because I like bought everything I wanted years ago, and yeah, at this point I just get new things from Amazon, and that's about it. But yeah, so sorry if you're looking for good places to get manga. I don't know what to say, but yeah, that's where I got most everything. And then, oh, and the really long shonen series like Bleach and Naruto and stuff, I bought with the box sets, because that's probably the cheapest way to go, and they come with cool boxes. I also often get asked what shelves I have, and the answer is that these are IKEA Billy shelves, which I think are very good for these smaller volumes, because they fit pretty nicely on there. But then, okay, this shelf over here is an IKEA Kallax, which is good for the heavier volumes, these hardcovers and stuff, because these hardcovers will bend to the Billy shelves. The Billy shelves are not built for really weighty volumes, while the IKEA Kallaxes can stand up to that, so I recommend that for the heavier volumes. Alright, back to talking about manga. So next up's Naruto. So back in the day, this is like a year ago, I was doing monthly videos where I would talk about everything that I read in that specific month. And Naruto was brought up in pretty much all of those videos. So I basically chronicled my whole Naruto reading experience over that year. And it was a good time. I had a lot of fun reading this. And yeah, I mean, it's just a solid, fun shonen series, and I'm a fan of it. And then I got this 1 volume Naruto, the spin-off Boruto prelude thing at the end of there too. No, this was a bit of a blind buy on my part. Basically, this had been out of print for years, and it came back, and I was worried it was going to go out of print again, so I bought the whole thing before it could. And I haven't read any of it yet, but I've heard really, the bits and pieces I've heard about it sounded like it would be up my alley, and I want to get into more shoujo in general, because yeah, if you've seen all the other manga I have, it's not very shoujo-y, so yeah, hopefully this will be a good introduction to shoujo, and I'll like it when I get around to reading it. I started reading the first volume and I was digging it, but it was just a lot of words, and I wasn't feeling that at the time, so when I'm feeling wordy, I'll go back to this and read the rest of it. Battle Royale, this is another one that's excessively out of print, so that's why I only own the first 7 volumes and this random volume 13 here. But the Battle Royale book is one of my favorite books. The Battle Royale movie is one of my favorite movies. And whenever I get the rest of this and finish reading all of it, I'm sure it'll be one of my favorite manga too, because I really like what I've read so far here. And yeah, Battle Royale is just great because I feel like every incarnation of it justifies its existence by being different enough. Like the movie, the book, the manga, they all bring different things to the table, but they're all still Battle Royale and they're all great, and I'm just a big fan. Next up is Bleach. Oh man, I love Bleach so much. The first 30 volumes of Bleach was the most fun I've ever had reading a battle shonen, and even after that, like it's still pretty good, you know. And it definitely has its flaws later on, but I was hooked all the way through reading this. I read this whole thing in like 2 or 3 weeks, I think. And this is 70 some volumes. That is, I do not read series this long that fast under most circumstances. So Bleach was special, you know. It was a really good time. I was hooked. And also, I mean, it helped out a lot that some of these volumes, there's barely any dialogue and you can read them in like 15 minutes each. But either way, Bleach was just a whole lot of fun. And, you know, this beginning part, like even the very first arc where it's just Ichigo hanging out at school and fighting shadow people and stuff, that's a lot of fun. And of course, Soul Society is one of the best arcs ever. And oh man, I need to move on or I'll just gush about Bleach for 7 hours, so we can't have that. Let's move on to the next one. Real quick, I also got the 4 box sets of One Piece. This is volume 1 through 90, it looks like, and I've read up through the end of the Marineford arc, which was really, really good stuff. The best shonen manga arc I've probably ever read. One of the best pieces of anything I've ever consumed anywhere. Just really good stuff, that Marineford. But yeah, I'm not going to talk about One Piece for as long as it deserves, because I have to hold my hands up really high to record this, and it's kind of uncomfortable, and the camera's probably all shaky and stuff, because yeah, I ran out of room on my normal manga shelf, and so I have these box sets up here on top of my video game shelf. That's why it's not with the other stuff and all that. But yeah, One Piece, it's been getting a lot of love recently. It deserves it for sure. Genshiken, these are the most beaten up, disgusting looking volumes I own. They look fine from the spine here. They don't look too bad, but if I showed you what the pages look like, ooh, it's vile. They're all yellowed and there's like foxing and stuff going on. It's not a good looking set of books, but they were really cheap, so that's nice. And I got these Evangelion spin-offs here. This first one is kind of a romance Evangelion spin-off, and the second one is a comedy kind of deal. I'm not going to talk too much about Evangelion right now because I love it a lot, and I know I'm going to talk your ear off later on when I get to the main Evangelion series, so I'm holding myself back yet again, and we'll talk about, oh boy, speaking of things I have lots of love for, here's Gintama. Gintama is definitely my favorite anime of all time, but I technically haven't finished it yet. I've been watching this show for, I think, 5 years at this point, and I still have a handful of episodes that I haven't seen. And I think it's just because I love it so much and I don't want it to end, and I always want there to be some more Gintama I haven't seen yet. I don't know how weird that is. I know people do that, but I haven't really done that with anything else, so I don't know why I'm doing that with Gintama, but I think that just speaks to how much I love it, I guess, that it's the only thing that I don't want to end in that way. But Gintama, it's great. It's a really good comedy with really good drama moments, too. I think that it's funnier than any other anime I've seen. And it also has better serious moments than just about anything else I've ever seen, too. This is also one of the few series where I'd recommend the anime over the manga for Gintama. So that's rare, but okay, I gotta hold myself back from talking too much about Gintama. And we'll move on to Reborn, which I also love. Reborn is another series with comedy and drama elements, although unlike Gintama, where the comedy and drama are kind of interspersed throughout the whole thing, Reborn, the first 7 volumes are all just straight comedy, and then it becomes a battle shonen right after that. So it's a more, yet all the comedy stuff up front in here. And I think because of that, this is a very polarizing series. I've had people comment on my videos saying that they love Reborn. I've had people saying that it was like the dumbest most boring thing they've ever witnessed. And I mean, I get it. The humor, it's going to depend on who you are. I love babies with guns. That is the peak of comedy to me. So I think this is a great series, but yeah, it might not be for everyone. Oh, another similarity between Gintama and Reborn is that neither of these are fully released in English. They both got canceled after a certain amount of time before they're even close to completing the whole series. So that's a downer. I wish that they would get back to releasing the full series of these. And I think with Gintama, there might be a chance, but Reborn, I don't see that happening at all. I'm sorry, Reborn. I don't have high hopes that you'll get translated fully in physical English. But oh, D. Gray Man's next, and I have an interesting story with this one here. So I'm a big fan of thrifting and going to used bookstores. I've talked about that a lot in this video. And it just, I'm just a big fan of not paying a lot of money for books and paying a little money for books instead. So used bookstores, that's where it's at for me. And I'm always on the hunt for new used bookstores to go to. And so I was Googling used bookstores and I found one. And I said to myself, oh, okay, I'm going to go over to here, see if they got any manga or other things I'd be interested in. And I drive up to it and I walk in and it's like a Christian used bookstore. And I'm like, okay, this isn't what I expected. I don't think there's going to be anything I particularly want here. And I look around this Christian store and they have this whole set of D. Gray Man at the Christian bookstore, and these were $1.50 for each volume, and so I snatched the whole thing up. Yeah, it's these beaten up, nasty ex-library copies, but I mean $1.50 a volume. You can't go wrong with that. So these are the only ex-library ones, ex-library manga I own, but I mean this is a series I've been wanting to check out for a bit, and that was a steal, man. I was not expecting to find D. Gray Man at the Christian bookstore, but there it was. Higurashi, this is another one of my favorite anime of all time. And when I first got into manga, the manga version of this was stupidly out of print. People were buying this for $3,000+ It was crazy, but it did come back in print a couple years ago, and I snatched that whole thing up. And this is a bit of a weird case for me where I've read chunks of this manga out of order. Like I've read the last volume of it, but haven't read the first volume. And that's probably the only series I'm going to do that with, just because, I've seen the anime and I was wanting to know how the manga differed from the anime in certain ways and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm normally not a wild person reading chunks of manga in random orders like that. It's just because I've seen the anime of this one before. But I've also read Umineko, which is kind of the spiritual successor to this. Some of the same ideas and characters carry over into that series, and that one is, unfortunately, that one's still incredibly out of print. So it'd be nice if that came back so that I could buy it, but until then, I got this. So I got Higurashi, and I also have the controversial sequel series over here. Voices of a Distant Star. This is a nice little one-volume sci-fi romance one-shot thingy. It has cool-looking robots and aliens and love and stuff. So yeah, it was nice. Oh, Cross Game. This has been fun from what I've read of it. Well, it's fun and kind of sad and tragic and stuff. But overall, yeah, it's been good. Yeah, the reason I've read this first volume, but volume 2 and 6 are randomly out of print, and so I'm not gonna read the rest of it until volume 2 comes back, and I'm hoping it'll be soon. I'm hoping it'll be soon. If not, I'll just read volume 2 online and then read the rest later. But yeah, this is kind of like, it's kind of giving me Peanuts vibes, like Charlie Brown and all that, but if there was more of a story, there's a bit of a romance going on here, and there's a bit of, like I said, there's some tragedy in here too. There's a little, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on, but it's very charming. That's the key phrase to describe Cross Game. Very charming, good stuff. Future Diary, this is not very charming. This is a death game series. I eat up everything death game related, no matter how stupid. And this series, it's a little dumb, I'm not gonna lie. What I've read of it, there was some dumbness going on, but I'm still intrigued. I mean, this is like the poster child of death games, kind of. Outside of Battle Royale, this is probably the most famous one. It's definitely, yeah, it's had a big influence for sure. So I'm gonna read the rest of it, and I've been liking it. It's just it's a little silly at parts, you know. But also, this is one where I bought the first 3 volumes just to sample it, to try it out a bit, and then the whole series promptly went out of print after that. So I guess I'll read the rest online someday. Oh, Bakuman. I got a really good deal on the box set of this series, and I'm thankful I didn't pay much for it, because this box is the most beaten up, nasty looking box I've ever seen a box set come in. This thing looked like it was delivered from the warehouse in Saw. It was really bad. But the books themselves look pretty good, so that's all that really matters to me. Yeah, Bakuman. I'm thankful for Bakuman, because I heard before I read it that it spoiled Ashita no Joe. And so I was like, okay, I guess I gotta read Ashita no Joe first so that I don't get it spoiled. And then that series became one of my favorite series of all time. So thank you, Bakuman, for spoiling things and making me go read them. One Punch Man. This series is a lot of fun. I remember I tried watching the anime and it just didn't hook me for some reason, but the manga I'm really into. I could just blow through several volumes of this manga in one sitting. It's really engaging. And I don't know if I've talked about it before, but my volume 1 is some kind of special edition thing. There's like it has a cool cover. Yeah, look at that. That's a lot cooler than the normal volume 1. I don't know. I forget where exactly what this was made for, but some kind of special thing. Well, I found this for $3 at a used bookstore. That's why I owned it. I didn't go to whatever special place they were originally selling this volume at, but yeah, that's the one I have. I think it looks cool. And then I'm a couple volumes behind. I don't know how much I'm going to keep up on getting One Punch Man, because this is a series that could go on forever. And I like One Punch Man a lot, but I don't know if I like it enough to own like 180 volumes of One Punch Man, you know? So whenever it ends, I'll probably feel out how I'm feeling about it and then decide whether I want to buy the rest. But I'm pretty content with what I have of One Punch Man for now. Ajin, this series is really cool. It gets compared to Tokyo Ghoul a lot, and it's kind of like that and kind of not. But I think if you're a Tokyo Ghoul fan, this would be up your alley. Yeah, this is really fun, and I never finished it for some reason. Well, I think it wasn't finished when I first read this. That's probably why I never finished it, but I should go back and finish it, because everything I read of it I really enjoyed. And these spines are so good. Look at those spines. I saw that they're making these in beefier, taller versions, but I think I'll just stick with these because I don't like rebuying things in general. But also I think these look cooler. Like, look how colorful those spines are. That's great. World Trigger. This is the newest addition to my manga, because I just found this a couple days before I started filming this video at my main used bookstore for a really good price. And I know that I think some of these volumes are out of stock and you can't really get them online right now, so I was really thankful to find these, because World Trigger is one that I've been on the hunt for years. I told myself if I found it at a used bookstore I'd pick it up, and I did. And yeah, it's not the whole series. There's 26 volumes right now, I think, and it's still going. This is one of those series that is going to go on forever, I hear. So, but yeah, this is still a good chunk of it, and I'm excited I picked it up. I think at this point, the only other Battle Shonen series I'm really interested in getting is Siren, which is out of print and hard to find, but if I ever see that at a used bookstore, I'll pick that up too. But now with this, I mean, I'm getting closer to owning basically everything I want, so yeah, I was very, very excited to pick that up. A Silent Voice. This is one of my favorite manga of all time, and on some days I would probably say that this is my favorite manga of all time. It's squarely in the top 5 for sure, but this is definitely the most emotional manga I've ever read. Oh boy, I probably cried while reading this. I'm not gonna lie. There was probably tears. It's just very good. I'm not going to give a whole plot summary of what happens or anything, because here's my thing. If you're watching an hour plus long video of me looking at books on my shelf and talking about them, then you probably know the basic plots of most of these series I'm going to talk about. That's my thought process here. But yeah, A Silent Voice, if you haven't read it yet though, I'd say you should check it out. There's a really good movie adaptation too that you could watch that I try to get all of my friends to watch, and none of them have watched it, and that doesn't bring me joy. But yeah, Silent Voice, very, very good. My Hero Academia, I heard that this ended recently and that nobody liked the ending and it was very bad. And I wish that was the only series I could say that about, but that's going to be a running theme for several more series I own on this shelf. But I mean, I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know. What I've read of it so far, I liked. I know this series gets clowned on a lot for being real basic or whatever, but I thought it was good for what it was so far. Maybe it gets horrible later on, who knows? But I like what I've read of this. But yeah, you know what this is about too, so I'm definitely not gonna give any plot summaries of that. But on to the next one. After the Rain. Oh, I love this series. I've talked about this a whole lot on the channel before, so you don't need me to talk too much more about it. But it has a very sketchy premise, but it's not a very sketchy story. Nothing super sketchy happens in here. This is just a very good, I guess, slice of life series about some characters, and like all the side characters in here feel really developed, and the main characters feel extraordinarily well realized, and it's just very good. I'm a slice of life hater. This is not my thing, but this is just a very melancholic, engaging story about life and stuff like that. Here's the Go Tanabe at the Mountains of Madness. This just got a super fancy Dark Horse Deluxe hardback edition, and I kind of wish I'd bought that instead, because these paperbacks weren't incredibly cheap either, and I feel like I'd rather have the blown up fancy edition instead of these. But I mean, the art's still real good no matter what size the book is, and that's what you're getting here. You're getting some real good art. I think that I enjoy stuff like this a little more than the original H.P. Lovecraft stories, because I always thought Lovecraft had really good ideas, but his writing wasn't my favorite. And so with this, you get the cool ideas with better pacing and really cool art. So I like that version of this. Blood on the Tracks. I only owned the first 8 volumes of this, because these are the only ones I've found used. So if I find the rest at a used bookstore, I'll pick them up. But yeah, this series was really good. It just ended last year, and I think it was last year, right? I don't know. Time's so weird these days. I don't even know when things happen anymore. But I read the end of it online, and it was, yeah, it's a fantastic ending. I feel it's definitely not what you'd expect from just reading these beginning volumes, but I think it worked. And oh yeah, this is by Shuzo Shimi, who's my man. Probably my favorite manga author. I've read every single thing he's done, and this is definitely one of the better ones. If you've never read anything by him before, I would probably start with this. This is probably the most accessible thing he's ever written, which is saying a lot, because this is still really disturbing, but it's really great. If you're into horror and stuff, check it out. Opossums. This is by another one of my favorite guys, Tsutomu Nihei. But unlike Blood on the Tracks, I would not recommend this as your first Tsutomu Nihei work. I mean, you'd probably be fine if you read this first, but this is, if you're looking for one specific one to start with, I wouldn't necessarily pick this one. But I mean, this is still, one of my friends, this was his first thing he ever read by him, and he liked it, so he was fine. But yeah, Nihei, he's cool. Jujutsu Kaisen. This is the second entry in my trilogy of a series that just ended in the past few months and had endings that nobody liked. And yeah, this is, I mean, it's really popular. You know all about it. I tried reading the whole thing this year so that I could get caught up in time for the ending, and I I kind of fell off of that, but I'll definitely I'll get back to it. It's good. I like it. I just wasn't feeling it in the moment. But yeah, it's very Bleachy. Reminds me a lot of Bleach, and as you know, I like Bleach a lot, so I'm sure I'll like this when I finish the thing. And all these things with bad endings. I'm really excited to get to the ending and see what everyone hates about them. I don't know. That's probably a weird reason to want to read these series, but I'm really interested in these terrible endings that no one likes. Also, I only have the first 19 volumes of Jujutsu Kaisen because this is all that they had at the used bookstore. Next up, Burn the Witch. This is also this is by Kubo, the Bleach guy. Yeah, this has a cool slipcase cover thing. It's the only time I've seen that for manga, so I'm happy that they have one of those. They should do that for more things because they're just really fun. Chainsaw Man. This is another one of my all-time favorite manga. Love this series, but I'm saying that with the caveat that I'm not caught up digitally yet. I've read all of these physical volumes, but I've heard that maybe there's stuff that happens after this point that people have polarizing opinions on. So who knows if it'll still be one of my favorites once everything's all said and done, but all these volumes right here in front of you, I like these a lot. Big fan of Chainsaw Man. Really happy that people like it a lot and stuff, because I do. I think it's great. I also have these short story collections by Fujimoto that I think are rad. This first volume in particular, this was just, I had a blast reading that first volume. So here's the final entry in the trilogy of series that ended recently that had endings that were widely hated. Oshinoko. Now this, I made a video on my favorite first volumes in manga, and this one was firmly in the top 5. Very great first volume. I think out of all these bad ending mangas, this is the one I'm most interested to see what the ending is like, because this is just knowing how wild this series already is at the beginning, I imagine that the ending is absolutely insane as well. So yeah, I think this is the one I might try to get caught up on first. I don't know. I was already midway through Jujutsu Kaisen, so I should probably finish that. But this one, I'm super intrigued by it. I just want to know what's so bad about it. And then I have these random 5 volumes of Kaiju number 8 because I found them used for really cheap. Is anyone still keeping up with Kaiju number 8? This is a series that had a whole lot of hype around it at the beginning, and then just everyone fell off of. I just want to know, is it still, people who are still reading this up to date, is it still good? Is it still, I don't know. I just want to hear some thoughts on Kaiju number 8 from people who are deep into it at this point. Oh, and Death Note, I got this silly all-in-one Death Note edition. This was $15 at the used bookstore, and I thought, oh man, $15 for all of Death Note? That's a steal. And then I got this, and this thing is unreadable. This is just, I flipped this open, and this is a hassle to read. But I've seen the anime of Death Note, so I've experienced the story before. But it's still cool that I have this. It doesn't take up much space. But it's just so, I love the impracticality of it. Moving up to the taller volumes here, I got more Satoshi Kon, Dream Fossil, Seraphim, and Opus. Opus is the most famous of these for sure. It's famously unfinished. Well, Seraphim doesn't have an ending either, but Opus, yeah, it definitely, it doesn't have an ending, and yet it kind of does at the same time. You'll just have to read it and see, but I think Opus is very good. Would recommend it for sure. Blade of the Immortal, I finally read this for the first time this year, and it's incredible, guys. This is a fantastic series. I don't know if I'm gonna do another one of those top manga I read in the year videos that I've done in the past, but if I end up doing one of those, this is gonna be the number one, probably. And I've read some other great manga this year, really, really good manga, but I think this is the winner here. This is just, I mean, it's a classic for a reason. It's a long. There's a lot of stuff that happens in it, but it doesn't waste your time, and that's hard to pull off in a manga. This has a great beginning, great middle, great ending, great characters, really good revenge story with other stuff thrown in there, and great art, great fight scenes. Everything about this is great. I love it. If I end up making a best of the year video, I'll have a lot more to say about it than that. Monster is also a fantastic series. I haven't read this in about 5 years. I'm due for a reread on this one, but this is by Naoki Urasawa, who he's fantastic too. I've only read 3 of his works, his most famous ones, but if the other ones are as good as those have been, this guy has a shot at being one of my favorite manga authors, or my all-time favorite manga author. He's already one of my favorites for sure. But yeah, I've said before, I think this has the single best premise in all of manga, where a doctor saves a boy's life, and then the boy grows up to become like the worst serial killer ever, and so the doctor decides to hunt him down, and it's just a really gripping mystery story. Lots of twists and turns and all that good mystery stuff you'd expect. Evangelion, love this series, one of my all-time favorites. I bought Funko Pops of this series, and I don't even like Funko Pops that much. That's how much I like it. And yeah, I think I said earlier that this was the first manga I ever bought, and that's true. I loved the anime of this. This was one of the first animes I ever watched too, but I loved the anime, bought the manga, read it all, loved the manga. I just love not everything about it, but a lot of things about Evangelion I love. And if you've seen the anime and you haven't read the manga and you liked the anime, I would recommend the manga, because there's a lot of things I think the manga does better than the anime. I think the pacing is better overall. There's some character moments that are only in the manga that I think add a lot to the experience. But I will say, I think the ending is much worse in the manga than the anime. So overall, I think I'd recommend the anime more. I think it's slightly better, but they're both very good and both different enough that they can both stand on their own, and they're both worth checking out for sure. Next is Kaiji. This series is a blast. It's very stressful and very hype, but I think it's great. And man, I don't know what's up with the release of this series, because I've heard that Denpa, who's publishing it, is only doing part 1 of Kaiji, which will be up to volume 6, the next volume. And then they're not going to do any more. So I guess that's just up in the air as to whether the rest of the series gets published or not. And I'm not having high hopes. I think it's likely we'll just get part 1 here and that'll be it. But I hope that the rest of the series comes over. That would be nice. Vagabond. This is probably my favorite series that I don't own all the volumes of, because I've only ever found these first 3 volumes used, and I keep telling myself that I'll find the rest someday, but that hasn't happened yet. I read this about 5-6 years ago or something. It's been one of my favorites ever since. And yeah, but this is kind of good timing, because they're coming out with newer hardcover editions of these. So maybe, since I don't have the whole thing, I'll hop on those hardcover editions and just buy those when they come out. And that's a good idea. I'll probably do that. Planetez, I own both the volumes of this. I just have volume 2 in here for now, because I have volume 1 out and I'm currently reading it very slowly. But I'm working through it, and to be honest, guys, I'm not loving it. It's very slow. It hasn't, I'm not exactly chomping at the bit to finish the whole series. But I mean, it has potential. There's nice character moments, and I like the atmosphere of it and everything, but it's definitely not something I'm super excited to read the rest of. But it's a short enough series that I own the whole thing. I'm going to finish it, but yeah, I hope it picks up, but yeah, who knows. Azumanga Daioh. This is a 4-coma comedy kind of thing, which is normally not for me at all, but this one I find entertaining. I should buckle down and finish the whole thing because I haven't read all of it yet, but at the same time, this doesn't seem like the kind of series that you really do that for. This doesn't seem like a binge series and more like a pick it up and read it when you feel like it series. So I think that's what I'm gonna continue to do. Oh, real. I read the beginning of this after finishing Slam Dunk because it's, you know, it's by the same guy and it has a similar premise. So I was trying to chase that Slam Dunk high. And I liked the beginning of it a lot, but I figured I'd try to pace myself because this series, it's famously on hiatus, sort of. Well, I don't think it's quite on hiatus, but it takes forever to come out, and it's not going to be done for a long time. So I don't want to blow through all the reel I have right this moment and then have to wait 20 years for the rest to come out or anything. 20th Century Boys. I think I said in an earlier video I made that this was my all-time favorite manga. And I wouldn't say that anymore. I think that the ending of the series is a little weak, but it's still definitely one of my favorites. Definitely like a top 10 favorite for me, for sure. Because aside from that ending, I think just about everything else in here is pretty great. I remember my first time reading through this. This is one of those series where I was binging it. There's twists and turns, and I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. And that's just a great experience to have with a manga, and I always think fondly on this series for that. Oh, and look at the picture that they make on the spines here. That's pretty sick, isn't it? Number 5 by Taiyu Matsumoto. Oh, that's a change that I've experienced, some character growth that I've gone through since the last video I made. I'm a Taiyu Matsumoto guy now. I'm reading more of his stuff, and he's my man. He's entered my ranks of men who are my man now. And yeah, I haven't gotten to this one yet. I hear that this is kind of a masterpiece though, so I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, there's some other Taiyu Matsumoto that I'll talk about later that I love. So next, Dorohedoro. This is another great series. This is one where it is incredibly bizarre, incredibly creative. If you haven't read this before, there's no way to prepare for what you experience in here, because there's just off-the-wall ideas being launched at you every page, but they all work. Because sometimes when things get a little too crazy, you stop caring, but this, things get crazier and you just care more, and I don't know how they did it. So yeah, Dorohedoro, I read this for the first time last year, and it made my list of favorite mangas of the year, because it's really good. Aria the Masterpiece, definitely the nicest looking Tokyo Pop volumes I've ever seen. Most Tokyo Pop volumes look like they're printed on dryer lint and used candy bar wrappers, but these here, no, these are some quality. They got the little gold foil thing going on. They got the little flaps in the book and everything. That's just some good looking volumes there. Pluto. This is another Urasawa classic. I first read this in college. They had it at my college library in these cool hardcover editions. And this was the first, no, wait, did I read Monster or this first? They had both of them at my college library. And 20th Century Boys. My library had good taste. But I don't know, whether I read this or Monster first, I really enjoyed this, as I enjoy all things Urasawa related. I need to read more of his stuff. Oh, I want Billy Bat to get translated physically so bad. I know that there's reasons that might not happen, but I'm holding out hope that it'll happen someday. By Omega, this is by Tsutomu Nihei, who's really good at drawing cool stuff. The selling point of this one is that it has bears with guns in it. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. There's also zombies, motorcycles, cyberpunkish things. It's a good time. Not Simple. This is a one-shot that is in the sad people who have sad lives genre of manga. You know, Goodnight Pun Pun, The Gods Lie, No Longer Human, that kind of stuff. It's squarely in there somewhere. But I didn't really care for this one, to be honest. It has a really interesting prologue where this woman is trying to get her mafia dad to kill her boyfriend or something. I don't know. It's been a couple months since I've read this. I'm fuzzy on some details. But I was hooked with the mafia dad to kill the boyfriend stuff, but then the rest of it was just kind of dull, and I didn't really care for it. But That prologue was interesting though. Solanin. This is my second favorite Inio Asano work. This is probably his most optimistic one too. I don't know. It would either be this or What a Wonderful World would be his most optimistic. But that's kind of a low bar because this manga is still quite sad. There's that trademarked Inio Asano sadness in here. So if you go to his works for that, don't worry. You're gonna be sad reading this, but I do think that it is ultimately pretty optimistic. Pandora Hearts. I should probably set a goal to read Pandora Hearts next year. I've read the first chapter of it and thought it was really intriguing. It was giving me Penguin Drum vibes, if you've seen that anime. It was giving me Alice in Wonderland vibes, and those are things that I'm a big fan of. So, and I hear that this is just a really solid mystery manga, and I'm sure it'll be up my alley, so I gotta get on this by next year at least. Crimson Shell. This is a 1-volume manga by the author of Pandora Hearts. And then Memories of Eminon. This is my favorite 1-volume manga of all time. It did get a sequel series, but I don't own those because they never got finished. They got canceled very abruptly, and there's no conclusion whatsoever to the story, which is a shame. But this, oh man, this 1 volume right here is fantastic. I loved it a lot. Goodnight Pun Pun. This is the Citizen Kane of the sad person has a sad life genre of manga. And yeah, I think it's very good. I think that it does get a lot of hype over how sad it is and stuff, but it's also quite funny at times too. There's other reasons to read it than just to be really sad. It's a good series. This is my favorite Inio Asano. This is a lot of people's favorites by him. No Longer Human. No Longer Human. This is an adaptation of the classic novel. I've read both the novel and this manga, and they're both very good and both worth reading. They both bring different things to the table. The book, I'd say, is a lot more in-depth and is more disturbing in that way. But this one, I'd say, has much faster pacing, but not in a bad way or anything. It just gets you to the core beats of the plot faster, and it also has very good art as well. The Flowers of Evil. This is the other series I own by Shuzo Ishimi. It's weird because I've read everything he's ever made, and I only own 1.5 of his series, but this is maybe my favorite of his. Inside Mari is also very good. Happiness is also very good. Blood on the Tracks is also... He has a lot of really good ones. This is one of the ones that could be considered my favorite. And but it's definitely... it's not for everyone at all. It is very... yeah, this is kind of one that, depending on who you are, I'd either recommend that you look into this a lot before you read it, or you don't look into it at all, depending on what kind of personality you have. But yeah, obviously, I think it's a well-done series, and I should get some more Shuzo Ishimi. I just never see them used anywhere. Judge. This is a death game manga. This is the spiritual successor to Doubt, which is the more popular of these series. But I thought Doubt wasn't very good. I did not like Doubt that much at all, but Judge is good. I wouldn't say it's phenomenal or anything, but I liked Judge. I was never bored. I was never like, this is incredibly stupid, I hate it, or anything. And I thought that it was a good read overall. If you're a death game person, I'd recommend these. This is one of my friend's favorite manga of all time. And then next up we got Alice in Borderland, which is one of my favorite manga of all time. I remember I picked up this first volume the day that it came out, and I decided, okay, I'm going to read these volumes as they come out, as they're released every couple of months, and just keep up with it physically like that. So what I did, I read this first volume. I was so hooked. I got to the end. I saw that the next volume wasn't going to come out for several months, so I was like, never mind. And I just went online and read the fan translation of the whole series in less than a week. This is maybe the most engaging series I've ever read. Ever. This This is a death game manga, and this is the best death game manga. This is as a death game connoisseur, I can pretty safely say that this is the best one that I've read. There might be a better one out there that I don't know about, who knows, but this is definitely my favorite. Highly recommend it. Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re. This is one of the first manga I ever read, and I have a soft spot for it because of that. I still think it's a really good series. I know it gets some hate for being edgy and all that, but I enjoy a nice edgy series sometimes, a nice tastefully edgy manga. And oh man, look at that. There's this nasty whatever that is on top of that one volume that bugs me, but oh well. It adds character, I guess. All You Need Is Kill. This is the manga adaptation of the book The Edge of Tomorrow. Was based off of the Tom Cruise Groundhog Day-esque sci-fi movie. Oh, Land of the Lustrous. This just finished up this year, so I binged the whole thing. There's another volume that isn't out yet in English, but I read that online. And yeah, this was quite good. I'd heard a lot of hype about this over the years, and I decided that, you know, as soon as it was done, I was going to read it. That's what I did. It was very good. I liked it a lot. Innocent. I think the third and final volume of this comes out in a couple days, so in hindsight, I probably should have waited until I got that to start filming this, but oh well, I think you'll survive if I only have 2 volumes of Innocent instead of all 3 of them. But yeah, this has incredible art. I'm gonna wait until I get that third one in to start reading it, but I hear that it's very good, so I'm looking forward to that. Toyo Game. Oh boy, Toyo Game. This is my ultimate guilty pleasure manga. So it's a death game series, and it is the death gamiest death game that ever was, and with all the good and the bad that comes with that. That is unapologetically what it is. It is definitely not the most sophisticated story ever, but what it lacks in that, it makes up for in just being absolutely wild. I see this series and it just brings a smile to my face when I think about the crazy stuff that happened in here. And I bought this totally blind too. I saw this at the store, knew nothing about it, read it, and it was just a joy. It was quite an experience. Dead Demons Destruction. I need to buy more volumes of this. I only own the first 4 and this random volume 8. Fire Punch. Oh man. This is another famously wild series, and I also think this one is great. I know that the ending of Fire Punch gets a lot of hate, but I thought the ending was pretty good. I enjoyed all of Fire Punch. I got these 4 volumes of Tokyo Revengers here. What I've read of it so far, I've liked, but I've heard legends of the ending of this series and how it gets really bad later on. So I'm intrigued by that. People who've finished this series, what volume would you say it gets really bad? I'd be interested in hearing people's takes on that. Downfall. This is maybe the bleakest Inyo Asano work, which is saying a lot because most of his stuff is quite bleak. But yeah, I mean, this was decent. It's not my favorite of his or anything, but it was worth a read. Nujirushi. This is a 1-volume Naoki Urasawa work. Hell's Paradise. This is very colorful spines, dudes fighting each other on an island. Sneeze. This is a short story Urasawa. And then, Look Back. This is a very good one-shot from Fujimoto. I haven't read a single bad thing from this man, and I think I've read everything he's ever done. So, yeah, he's very good. Takopi's Original Sin. Oh boy. As you can tell by this child crying rivers of tears on the spine, this is not the happiest read of all time. Not the feel-good read of the summer by any means. But I highly recommend it. I would recommend not looking up anything about it before you go into it if you're okay with dark stuff. Goodbye Eri. This is my second favorite 1-volume manga of all time. Very, very good, very creative story. This is another one I would recommend not looking at before you go into it. And this is just, yeah, it gives you a lot to think about when you're done with it. It is very, very good. Okay, now I got my Osamu Tezuka's. I got my random 1 volume of Phoenix, The Book of Human Insects, Message to Adolf, and however you pronounce that last one. I read Message to Adolf for the first time this year, and it was incredible. It's neck and neck with Blade of the Immortal for my favorite read of the year. It's very, very, very good read. Very dense, a lot to say, but it's also just a very engaging thriller story too. Yeah, I'd highly recommend it for sure. Devilman, this is another one that has a cool connecting image on the spines here. This is a classic series from the 70s. One of my friends from my church recommended this to me, and I picked it up, and this is kind of a blast. It's a classic, and it is insanely graphic. It is incredibly violent, and it has maybe the boldest ending I've ever read in a manga. This was a very, very bold choice of an ending. One of the best endings I've ever read in a manga. And yeah, I'd recommend it for sure, or the Netflix anime adaptation of this, Devilman Crybaby, if you can handle incredibly graphic stuff. But yeah, the one bad thing about this edition is that it shoehorns in these chapters that were written decades later where the main characters travel back in time and meet Joan of Arc and stuff, and they really mess up the flow and the pacing of the series. But you could just skip over those and you'll be fine. Here's Akira Toriyama's Manga Theater, and then Parasite over here in the full color editions, they call them. Man, I'm missing these last 2 volumes, and it looks really unsatisfying having it get so close to spelling out the names on the spine and then not doing that, but I'll pick up those volumes soon. Here's the few Junji Ito volumes I have. Uzumaki was one of the first manga I ever bought, but for the most part, I'm not the biggest Junji Ito fan. His art's really good. His stories are often less good, in my opinion. So I wouldn't be surprised if I end up getting rid of several of these. But I do think I'll at least hold on to Venus and the Blind Spot for the foreseeable future, because I like his short stories a good amount, and this one has the one with the holes in the mountains, which is really great. Here's Full Metal Alchemist in these cool hardcover editions. This is another one of my favorite series. But I'm sure you know all about Full Metal Alchemist, and you've heard a million people tell you that it's really great and stuff, so I don't know what else I could add to that conversation at this point, so I'll just move on. Vinland Saga, I'm not caught up on this by any means, but what I've read of it has been really good. I told myself I was going to get caught up this year, but I heard a couple months ago that it sounds like it's pretty definitively going to end next year, so now I'm going to wait a bit and finish this whole thing up next year and the months before it ends. DRCL, this is vampire stuff with really great art. I'm a couple volumes behind, so I should probably get more of this. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, this is a hardcover, cool looking hardcover thing that I found at a used bookstore and decided to pick up. Oh, Go-Go Monster. Okay, for years, I'd always heard that Go-Go Monster was probably the single coolest looking manga volume ever printed in English. And I'll show it to you here. I got the slipcover and everything. They got these rad, like, red pages here. And when this came, the pages were all kind of stuck together and glued together and stuff, and I had to pull them apart when I was reading it, so that was odd. But anyway, it's a really cool looking book, but I'd always heard people say that its looks are basically all it has going for it, and it's not actually that good of a story. But I read through this, and I liked it a lot. I think it's definitely worth reading. Even if this was a super ugly looking book, I would still own it, just because it is a good story, to be honest. Like, it's a very touching, emotional story about loneliness and friendship and all kinds of stuff like that. It is very surreal, though, so if you're not a fan of surreal things, I could see this not being for everybody by any means. But if you're into that kind of stuff, I'm here to say Go-Go Monster, it's actually pretty good. Then here's Noise and Abara, both by Tsutomu Nihei. These are both very quick reads, like basically everything this guy writes. I think I read both of these over one of my lunch breaks at work one time. But yeah, the art's incredible in here. Just very, very good stuff. All right, here's my shelf of pretty looking hardcovers. I got Gundam The Origin. Is probably the prettiest looking manga set in the game right here. Look at those spines. Those are nice. And the Summertime Rendering hardcovers, and then here's Erased over here. I'm not gonna lie, Summertime Rendering is probably gonna be finding its way out of my collection here before too long, because I enjoyed the first 2 or so volumes of this, and I felt like it just spun its wheels for the rest of the series, and it was kind of a drag to get through the rest of this. And then Erased, I go back and forth on whether I'm going to keep it or not. I do think overall it's pretty good, but I don't know if pretty good is going to cut it in this day and age. I'm running out of space. I think I might need to make some hard choices, and Erased might get cast out at some point. Here's my Tsutomu Nihei Master Editions. These tall fellas down here. First up is Blame. I never really figured out how to say the name of this right, because different people say it different ways. This is one of the first manga I ever read too, and I still don't know how to say this name right. But yeah, this is quite an experience. If you want to get into Tsutomu Nihei, this is where I'd recommend starting. It is the most Tsutomu Niheiist Tsutomu Nihei manga for sure. And there's Knights of Sidonia. This one's a bit more traditional, but it's traditional by Tsutomu Nihei standards, so it's still pretty weird. And then Wolverine Snicked. I read this for the first time a couple months ago, and this is basically if you just tossed Wolverine into one of Tsutomu Nihei's other manga, this is what you'd get. You get all the classic Tsutomu Nihei elements, the dark dystopian future, cyberpunk stuff, robot things with wires hanging off of them looking all disturbing and stuff, and then Wolverine's just chilling in the middle of all that. And I had fun with this. It was a good read. Attack on Titan. This is another series like Fullmetal Alchemist that I do not need to say many things about, because you've heard enough about Attack on Titan already throughout the years. But this is another one of my favorites, although I do like the anime a good bit more than the manga. And I will say, I think I fumbled some things up and bought the wrong edition of this, because I assumed, okay, Colossal Edition, really big, this is going to be the best way to own it, right? Nope. I read all these, and this was the most painful reading experience I've ever had, because these books, I feel like they weigh 70 pounds, and it's either you put them on your lap and then your legs go to sleep and that doesn't feel good, or you put them on a table and you bend your whole back over the table trying to read this, and then you get spine problems and stuff. And so this is not the optimal reading experience for Attack on Titan, in my opinion, but it is very big and stuff, so that's nice, I guess. Ping Pong. I read this for the first time this year, and this was great. I loved it a lot. I want to read everything Taiyo Matsumoto has ever done now. This series, I just fell in love with this series. This was, all the characters in here are so good. This is like, what, 2 volumes, probably 4 traditional sized volumes. And this has one of the best casts of characters I've read in manga. And like, given this relatively small amount of pages, I'm surprised that it pulled something like that off. This is a very good series. Definitely one of the best ones I've read this year. Nijigahara Holograph. This is probably my favorite of Inio Asano's really early work. I definitely like it more than What a Wonderful World. This one is quite disturbing, though. It verges into horror territory, and it's also pretty bizarre. I think it tells the story out of order, and I don't think I quite understood everything that happened in here, but I was definitely intrigued the whole time. Alright, last shelf. This is where I keep my big hardcovers. I'm going to try to speed through this a little faster than everything else that I've talked about so far. Okay, so we got Ghost in the Shell up first. Ghost in the Shell is something that I really like and really don't like at the same time. I love the aesthetic of the series and the overall story and themes, but just the walls of text that they have in here, where they just expound on this this techno babble that goes on forever. Not a fan of that. Not a fan of some of the goofier parts of the manga either, but yeah, the good parts I like. Battle Angel Alita, I hope that they do a cool hardcover box set like this for the sequel series to this, but I doubt that they will. I don't know if there's enough demand for something like that, but it would be nice. Magic Knight Ray Earth, I got the cool hardcover box set for part 1 here. I don't know if I'll get the one for part 2. I think they're reprinting that in a cheaper paperback volume, so I'll probably just pick that one up instead. Trigun. Oh, it's time for me to tell you my Trigun Tales of Woe over here. So I picked almost all of the original Trigun and Trigun Maximum up in paperbacks over the course of the past couple of years. And I had all the volumes except for 2 of them that came towards the very end. And when they started doing these hardcovers, I did the math, and I realized that it would be cheaper for me to re-buy all of Trigun and these hardcovers than to pay the aftermarket prices for the 2 out-of-print volumes that I was missing. So that's what I'm doing. It feels so silly. I'm sitting here, I'm only missing 2 volumes, and I have to re-buy the whole thing in hardcover because it's genuinely cheaper that way. And it's kind of frustrating, but oh well. Yeah, my Trigun paperbacks are sitting in my closet where I'll probably sell them off at some point later on, so that's why you haven't seen them in the video. And I'll have to buy the rest of these hardcovers as they come out. Tower of God. Tower of God, I liked this first volume a lot. I want to read more, but I'm worried about the future of this series as a physical release in English, because I see these volumes in clearance bins whenever I go to used bookstores, and or new bookstores. All the bookstores, every bookstore I go to has Tower of God in the clearance section, and that's not a good sign, because I know that this series is incredibly long already, and it's supposed to go even longer than that, and I just have no faith that this is selling well enough that they're going to release the whole thing in English over here. But oh well, hopefully it gets a good chunk of it out here at least. And then I just got Destroy All Humans, They Can't Be Regenerated. I don't have a place for this on the shelf yet because it just came in the mail. And I read this through and I really liked it. I picked this up because I like the creative team behind it, some of the other stuff they've done. And me liking this is saying a lot, because this is a Magic the Gathering slice of life or romance manga, and I don't really like any of those things. I know nothing about Magic the Gathering, but this is very endearing. I liked the character interactions in here. Akira, absolute classic, one of the best sci-fi manga ever. Comes in a really cool box if you get this edition. And if you've seen the movie, the manga is even better. I thought the movie was really good. The manga is a significant step up even from how good the movie was. Rohan at the Louvre. Rohan's my favorite JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character, so I picked this up. Then I have all of the Berserk hardcovers here. Berserk is probably my favorite manga of all time. I know that's not the most stunningly original opinion or anything, but I mean, it's the truth. It's a very good series. It's widely beloved for a reason. Hellsing, this is an incredibly fun action series. You got vampires shooting Nazis, Catholic guys with cross swords who are trained assassins and stuff. Really, really fun. And I got Clover, the hardcover of this. This is more Clamp. Take on Kingcrete. This is more Taiyo Matsumoto. And then I got the Nausicaa box set over here. I still gotta read this. I should put this on my reading plans for next year. There we go. That's all the manga I own. Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see me do one of those top manga I read this year videos that I was talking about earlier, let me know in the comments. And yeah, hope you go and have yourself a good day and all that. Thank you again.